Hello everybody, welcome back here to Motor Mouth, brought to you by the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. I'm Kendra.
I'm Dan.
And we're standing here by the 1907 Dragon, which was made in Philadelphia. Maybe the only Dragon left, at least that we know of. I haven't heard of any others. They didn't build that many.
I don't think so.
So this is a beautiful car. It's one of the most popular, actually.
I think the color really sets it off.
The color, and kids like that it's called a Dragon.
Oh,
I think
okay.
the kids like Dragon.
Okay.
Plus the color, so it's a standout. But I have no idea why we're talking about the Dragon today.
Aha.
I am excited.
Okay.
So what's on the
So take it away. Okay.
Yeah, take it away.
I am going to read something, and this is from the 2016 Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes. Okay.
The what now?
2016. Okay. Title 75, which is vehicles. Okay. Chapter 33, Rules of the Road in General. Section 3301. Taxpayer money at work here, okay?
That's right.
Section 3301, driving on the right side of the roadway. Okay? A, general rule. Upon all roadways of sufficient width, a vehicle shall be driven on the right half of the roadway, except as follows, and it gives a bunch of things. Okay, so we have a lot of people coming in here, and they're asking about, well, why do we drive on the right side of the road, or why do we sit on the left side to drive? Okay, now I took this as an example because it's right-hand steering, and probably half the vehicles in here are right-hand steering because they're old. Okay.
Yep.
And so hopefully, with my whole 2 pages of notes, I can kind of put this together for you. And but first, okay, this goes back to 1100 BC, okay, which is like 3,000 years ago. Okay, regulation of one side or the other might go back to the Chinese bureaucracy from there. The right side of the road is for men, left side for women, and the center for carriages. That's from the Book of Rights, whatever that is from back then.
So like pedestrians? Like,
I guess so.
Guess.
Applied only to wide official roads and was more concerned with protocol than avoiding head-on collisions. So it was protocol. So I'm thinking it's probably pedestrian.
Yeah, like a
and then
moral
carriages
thing.
would be in the middle.
Yeah. The men and women shouldn't have to.
Yeah, but if the carriages in the middle are going opposite directions, yeah.
How many carriages were there 3,000 years ago?
Who knows? Who knows?
Wow.
Maybe you can do that for the next show.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, we think of driving on the left side of the road as Britain, okay?
Right.
Which is, they still do that. One of the earliest written records about British driving position dates back to 1753. Pertains to crossing the London Bridge, which, if I'm right, the London Bridge is now in Arizona. And I wonder if...
Wait.
Yeah.
What?
You didn't know that?
No.
London Bridge falling down and all that? It's in Arizona. Look it up. Lake Havasu, I believe, is where it is. Okay. Anyway, it says possibly left side road rules might even date back to the Middle Ages. So what's that, like 1,200? Something like that?
Yeah.
1,000?
Yeah.
800 years? Okay. Travelers who carried swords would have them sheathed on the left side of their bodies to draw the swords with the right hands. So if they're on the on the left side of the road, and you got the sword over here and you pull it out because your opposition's over here on the other side of the road. So
yeah,
very good demonstration there.
This isn't very nice to lefties, is it?
No, I guess that's why I'm not a sword person, because I'm left-handed. Anyway, some countries restrict imports of vehicles that have their controls arranged differently than the norm, okay? Foreign tourists are usually allowed to drive their odd vehicles while they visit. May be required to have a left-hand drive or right-hand drive sign on the back of it. Cambodia, which drives on the right, this is interesting, banned all right-hand drive vehicles in January of 2001. So they drive on the right. They banned right side drive vehicles such as this in 2001. It required all car owners to modify their vehicles so the steering was on the left or risk confiscation.
Oh.
Yeah, that's pretty extreme
Wow.
here. About 80% of the vehicles had to be converted. 80%. So I'm thinking,
That's a lot.
yeah, maybe the government officials were in the steering changing business. I don't know.
We need to fill the state coffers. Let's do this.
So I'm thinking, did they change the side of the road that they were changing?
Yeah.
It didn't mention, like right before this. Okay, some, in Japan, right-hand drive again, okay, such as like this car. Some Japanese people import left-hand drive cars as a status symbol. So, you know, like a Mercedes or Lincoln or something like that, just to be somebody. Okay, that takes care of all the foreign stuff. Let's get to the United States,
Okay.
right? That's
All right.
why we're here.
That's right.
So I'll start off with ox teams, horseback riders, and handlers of the lead horse, and even pedestrians always traveled on the right side of the road. Travelers with handguns carried their weapons on the left side, and so that was part of it, I guess.
Bandits.
There was also an opposition to customs from the old world. And you think 200 years ago, 300 years ago, they didn't want to be like the British.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't want to be like
Yeah,
them. That's why they
we're
came
rebels.
here. And we're rebels.
1750-ish is when the Conestoga wagon came out. Okay, we have a Conestoga wagon over there. And when you
When?
come and visit, note that it doesn't have any seats on it.
No.
So the way they would lead this, you know, you always see the old movies and the guys are sitting in the seats and stuff. That's carriages. But the Conestoga wagon, which were very prevalent in this area, they would have teams of horses. Mm-hmm. So you would have the lead guy, the guy who's driving the wagon, would sit on the left horse, the rear. So if you had 4 horses, it'd be the left rear horse. Okay, so again, he's on the left, okay, but the vehicle's still on the right. Also, you would have maybe a guy walking. They would be walking on the left also. Also, you'd have somebody sitting on the lazy seat. I never knew what that was until this past. You know what it is.
Yeah, that little board that.
It's a little board sticks out from the side of the Conestoga wagon. We don't have one here, but we have a model. And there's a guy standing on it, who's actually operating a handbrake for the back wheels. So it's kind of interesting there.
Yeah.
All right. So that is kind of what they were doing back around 250 years ago. So if you were on a carriage, you'd probably be sitting on the left. Wait a minute here. Okay, if you were in a carriage, you would have the reins in your left hand and the whip would be on the right. And we have carriages here, and you see the whip holder is kind of like about where your elbow is there, okay? On that part.
Where the brake is here.
So they would be sitting there so they could pull the whip out, and the reins would be going in the center here, okay, making believe this is a carriage being pulled by a dragon. Okay. So that kind of explains why, kind of, you know, where the travel was back then. 1792, the first keep right law for driving in the United States was passed. And I remember hearing about this like a long time ago, like 20 years ago. Paul Hafer actually said it.
Oh.
There was a turnpike between Lancaster and Philadelphia, and that's where they started that. So
The keep right law.
yeah, and it stated that travel would be on the right-hand side of the turnpike. Okay, so the the travel, okay? That's not the seating position, but it's the vehicle position. And 1804, New York State recommended right-hand travel on all public highways. 1821, Massachusetts formalized right-hand travel. The national road, which is now Route 40 on a good chunk of it, goes from, I believe, Baltimore up to Pittsburgh, maybe further than Pittsburgh. That was left-hand travel until 1850, after the rest of the country was all on the right side. So that was the main transport path to the west by thousands of travelers. So that might have been confusing a little bit,
Yeah.
but apparently they got over it. Because I was on Route 40 last week and I didn't see anybody on the wrong side of the road, okay?
Thank goodness.
Okay, by the Civil War, right-hand travel was used in every state, all right? So we're talking about right-hand travel. Let's talk about the left-hand drive side of the vehicle. Again, wagon drivers, we mentioned that, they would sit on the right side and pretty much so it wouldn't run into a ditch. They had to keep an eye on that. And, but anyway, 1890, automobiles started becoming prevalent. Well, not prevalent, not in 1890, but they were out there. Okay, their steering mechanism, if you look at the real old cars, they would have a tiller. Now the tiller sometimes would come off on the right side, sometimes up in the center. You look at our Dorriers, we have some of them, and you have like a tiller thing coming right up through the center here that you could operate, which means you could sit on either side. But if the tiller was just on that side, obviously you'd have to be sitting there. Okay. The introduction of the steering wheel changed everything. So the car makers copied the existing practice and they put the steering wheel on the right, as we see in this car, as we see in the next car, as we, nope, not the next car.
I'm looking at
but I'm
three
thinking,
right in a line across from us over there.
So, so if you come here,
right.
we got a lot that are right-hand drive or right-hand driven, and a lot that are left-hand driven. So what changed it? And this is one of those questions that a lot of people ask, right?
All the time.
A lot of visitors.
Yeah,
So,
that's one of the most common for sure.
So this is an FAQ, frequently asked question. So
We're going to get an answer.
yeah, we're going to have an answer. Okay. So in 1909, the Model T Ford was introduced. Actually, it was introduced in 1908, but it was a 1909 model. Always had the driver on the left side of the seat. Always, okay? In this country. Canada, where they made cars for export, I believe had both sides. And if you look at early Model Ts, they did not have a door on the left side because you had your steering wheel coming up. It was just on the right side. But if it's a Canadian-built Model T, they had doors on both sides because of the export thing. Yeah. So there you go. So you walk around, you go to a car show, and you say, "Oh, this looks like it's a Canadian Ford." And they'll say, "Wow, you're smart."
Wow, yeah. Yes, I am.
Yeah. Okay. so the Canadian-built Model Ts, doors on both sides. They could have been built with steering on either side, depending on where they were going. Now, earlier Fords, and I looked this up, and Model T was not the first Ford. They had a Model A back in 1903, and they kind of went up through the alphabet, and they had, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 different models. Every one of them had the steering on the right side. The Model T had it on the left. Now, I'm going to read something here. This is from a 1909 Ford full-line brochure that I got off the internet on the Old Car Manual Project, which is a great website. Are you familiar with that?
No, but it sounds
It
fascinating.
has a lot of old brochures and such. And I actually copied part of this word for word because it's interesting. Now think, this was written in 1909. The control is on the left side. The logical place for the following reasons. The driver is then nearest the vehicle he is passing. In other words, the vehicle passing actually going the other direction. That's what they're looking at here. running in an opposite direction. With the right hand, in other words, if he sits on the right, he cannot see, and to guess is dangerous. With the control on the left, the driver and his front passenger step directly on the clean curb. With the old way, they walked around in the mud. So, they'd have to get around and walk here instead of going through it. Because remember what I said about the doors, they didn't have a door on the driver's side, so it all makes sense. We don't really think about stepping out of a car into mud.
No.
Maybe. Depends where you are. Yeah. Okay,
no,
but generally
really.
no, okay?
Yeah.
When the driver is seated, now this is the interesting part, and I was going to ask you to sit there, but we'll skip that here. When the driver is seated on the right, he is at a great disadvantage in learning if a vehicle is overtaking him on his left, as required by traffic regulations. And the moment when he is about to turn to the left, looking behind him on the right, a large section of the street is hidden from him by the car. So in other words, if you're sitting here and you want to make a left turn and there might be somebody coming up here.
Right there.
You might have trouble seeing, especially if you're driving the car to your right there because it has the roof up. How you going to see that?
It's a really bad blind spot.
Right.
Really,
or if you were sitting here,
it's a big car.
To sit there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it gets better. Okay. To have a clear view, he must stand up and look over the back, or if the design of his car prevents that, he must leave his seat and look behind from the left. Yeah.
Buster Keaton needs to be driving
So
these cars.
so if it was like an enclosed car or a car like that with the roof up, you can't see.
No.
Even if you stood up, so you'd have to walk over or move over to this side and look over here. So, yeah. So that's 1909 Fords, telling the benefit of having the steering from the left side. Now, by 1915, the Model T became so popular that the rest of the industry just
followed him.
Just followed it. Now, I have to tell you.
Of course, it had to do something with the Model T.
Yeah.
We should have known.
In 1909, Model T cost $850. Okay, which is equivalent to $27,723.82 as of last night. Okay,
wow.
That's the equivalent today, $27,000. All right, 1913, price of a Model T was now $600, which the equivalent today is just about $18,000. So dropped. 1924. The Model T's price was $295, the equivalent of $5,120.37. So with those kind of prices, everybody was buying it. And I know
no wonder,
Ford plant had, for their own workers, they had something where you could buy a car sort of with a payment plan and stuff. So it was, he was building them for his own guys, and it just was this cycle here. So, and it was estimated, I saw 40%, I've heard around 50% of the cars on the road in this country were Model T Fords. So it makes sense that everybody else switched over, in this country. So that is why we drive on the right side of the road and
but the driver's seat.
Right, is on the left. And I tried to find, I went on, I guess it's a national highway safety thing. They have all these regulations, like pages and oodles of them, and tried to find where they maybe regulated vehicles to be built, the cars built in this country, to have the steering on the left side of the vehicle. But I couldn't see that. Every time you see it, they're talking about actual safety things involving the steering, and I'm thinking, there's probably something out there.
Yeah.
It might even be the Society of American Engineers recommend it, but I didn't find it. I thought that would be like a bonus thing, but.
No dice.
So there you go.
Very cool.
Okay.
Now we have an answer for all the visitors.
We have an answer. And it's kind of the same answer.
It's the top 20 question around here for sure.
I've told visitors that quite often. you know, back then they were still figuring things out, and then the Model T came and that changed everything. So now you got documentation.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, they could kind of get away with doing your own thing because there still really weren't that many cars around.
Right, right.
And then the Model T, now suddenly they're everywhere.
Millions, everywhere.
And you got to figure it out a little more orderly.
Okay. So that's it.
Very cool. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you next time here on Motor Mouth at the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles.